Well, hello there. I hope you're all well, you amazing, amazing, beautiful, beautiful people. That's right, you are beautiful, and I hope you know you are. This is what's commonly known as the midweek hump, and we're going to be doing a live tonight. And what we're going to be doing in tonight's live is we're going to be going back, and we're going to be talking amongst ourselves. This is going to be full backwards and forwards between you and I, talking about things that had come up early on, and whether now they make more sense, whether there's things that have happened that make you look right back at the start and say, that makes sense. And we're going to be talking about one of those things right now. Now, we have spoken over the last few days, and we've touched on the fact that Ethan Chapman's mum had potentially said about 2 a.m. and the importance of 2 a.m. We know that Kathy Mabbitt had come out and said that these murders happened sometime between, some people say 2 and 3, some people say 2 and 4, but ultimately this 2 a.m. has always been something that's cropped up. We've spoken about the timeline around the Idaho 4 case and how we struggle to fit Bryan Kohberger into the timeline unless you consider an eyewitness account and camera information that is simply incomplete. If you don't believe it's incomplete, I suggest you go to the link down below in the in this video's description. That will take you to a comprehensive video from Get a Clue that looks at specifically the journey of this white Hyundai Elantra that they are claiming is Bryan Kohberger's. Now, is there potential that later on down the line in the court case itself that there will be all of these missing things added and it will all make a complete puzzle, not just this puzzle we have currently that's got the outside edges all completed, but the middle bit missing? Of course there is. Many people, however, feel that we have it all. People still, to this day, will turn around and say, but we've got the car. We've got Bryan Kohberger's car there. We know it. Look at the PCA. The PCA is bollocks. Okay? The PCA is incomplete, is rubbish. And as it stands, the PCA doesn't make sense. It simply doesn't make sense. It places Bryan's car in places that would mean it shouldn't be had it have come from where they're claiming it come from. And again, if you head down into the description and follow that link, that will explain that fully. It's a 30-minute long video, but it proves that not only is the PCA inaccurate, but potentially it's exculpatory unless they have other stuff. But look, we're talking about 2 a.m. and I'm going to go back to the start, and we're talking about someone who was seen running away from 1122 King Road. This was supposedly a female that had been caught on a camera. Now, this was a camera that was set up by a group of students from the University of Idaho. And I bet you've forgotten about that camera, haven't you? Now, is this camera true? Is this real? We don't 100% know. I know because this was right at the very start of this case. This is before we got into Bryan Kohberger. This was posted, okay, on the 23rd of November. And this was posted to the University of Idaho's proper page. It was subsequently taken down. And in fact, it would go on to suggest the person who had posted this had been removed from the group entirely. But it says, I just found out my remote photography group has video from a tripod that was stationed behind the house. It recorded from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. and shows a woman running from the side of the house as a truck entered the driveway. She ran away from the house and right by our tripod at approximately, almost, but not completely accurate or exact, roughly 2 a.m. A group member removed the tripod, and I don't know who now has the video. It is the group's right to not disclose why we record, but we would send in recordings in special circumstances. Some people have wondered whether they're astrophotographers or anything like that. Bit strange if they're astrophotographers, bearing in mind it's the sky that the camera would be pointing at. But anyway, maybe it's just monitoring behaviors in the area, perhaps, to do studies. Who knows? But ultimately, if you believe that there is any honesty, accuracy in this statement, then this would suggest that there was another camera set up. And that camera picked up somebody running away from that property. Now, we have been led to believe, and we've said this multiple times, that there is exculpatory evidence potentially surrounding Bethany Funk and her experience that was her own experience. It was what she had, seen or heard, what she had lived that night, and hers alone. Now, was it her that was seen running away from the property? Was something going on at this property and certain members inside this house left to be safe? A truck pulling into the car park. Remember on the Linda Lane footage, we clearly see this truck. Well, I'm saying this truck, a truck that matches this vague description in here. But what I'm saying is we've struggled and struggled and struggled with this timeline. This seeing Bryan Kohberger's apparent car at 4:04. Xana Kernodle being on her phone on TikTok potentially at, 4:12? And then the car being seen speeding away at 4:20. Meaning this person probably left this house at, say, 4:18. They didn't enter it until maybe 4:06, maybe approximately 10 minutes. And that's being fucking generous to say that they would leave the car, approach the house, get into the house, navigate around the house, do what needed to be done in this silent, stealthy, quick fashion, and get themselves in a situation where they're not going to drag any evidence out of the house into their vehicle and get away. But you open up that time frame and you open up a vast amount of other possibilities, potentials. And this here to say that at 2 a.m., some female was seen running away from that property. And we have two surviving roommates who are both female. One has been accounted for, rarely. She is now a witness for the prosecution, potentially. She was certainly a witness for Moscow PD, eventually, because originally she weren't, but eventually she was. And Bethany Funk, who we've just not heard anything from. We've not heard any account of her experiences. And when you think that we've not heard anything of her experiences, there was nothing included in the PCA, not a mention of her experiences. And the only thing we've heard was from a private investigation that was done on behalf of Ann Taylor and the defense team. They found that there is potential exculpatory evidence there. Now, was it that she had left? Did Bethany Funk leave that property? And prior to leaving, did she see a truck enter that car park and approach that property at around 2 a.m. in the morning? And did something, in fact, happen earlier on in that evening? And that is why the likes of the Chapin family are stating how the 2 a.m. is a dark time for them. And is the university being so good to the Chapins because of their knowledge of that time frame? And again, I'm just spitballing. I'm not pushing blame or suggesting that I know anything, because I don't. I'm just someone from over the pond looking at a crime, going back to the start, looking at some of the things that happened right before we even had Bryan Kohberger in our sights. And now things are coming out later on and people are mentioning times, and we're struggling with this time frame still. And we've got people who are fantastic at looking at evidence such as clue, get a clue, and looking at the path of this white Hyundai Elantra that almost proves beyond a reasonable doubt that it's not Bryan Kohberger's. And what I say by that, if all they've got is that evidence that we've been presented with the white Hyundai Elantra, then I can tell you now it's not his car. 100% not his car. Now, unless they've got a load of stuff that we haven't seen, which is possible, I'm telling you now, if all they've got is what we've seen, that's not his car. And if that's not his car, then this has been more about bringing this crime that happened here and putting it here, because if you put it here, then this person becomes joined up with this. Whereas if you leave it over here, there's disjointed and this person is no longer viable. And then you've got an ongoing investigation, a costly investigation that potentially brings the reputation of this entity that is the University of Idaho into question. And then you've got a problem. Well, we haven't got a problem. They've got a problem. One that they don't want, never wanted, and have tried their best to avoid. By burying everything, including 1122 King Road. Let me know down below. Do you remember this? Do you remember the 2 a.m. running girl? Who was it? And is there any connection to what happened at 1122 King Road that night? Who was the car? What was the car? Why haven't we heard anything? And why is this entire town not saying a fucking word? Sometimes silence speaks the loudest. I'll catch you all in tonight's live.